Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Price, CEO at Argyle Executive Forum, and welcome to this Executive Spotlight. Today, we're focusing on 2023 market research and offering you some thoughts on planning for your market research needs next year. In the course of the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to have a look at some of the big picture issues that affect this very important topic and make it so relevant for all of us. Then go through a number of important opportunities that market research offer to B2B marketers and those of us in the event management space. And then finally, focus on some things to do now and look at a few quick wins that you could capture by initiating them in time for the beginning of the first quarter next year. So without further ado, let me begin with just a quick overview of what are some of the things that constitute, I think, the most important big picture issues for market research. And it goes without saying that market research is a vital strategic pillar for any business, but particularly B2B businesses, as reflected in this finding from research conducted late last year in a post-COVID context, where the question was posed to CMOs amongst the tactics they'd employed in the COVID period, which of those would go on and endure as vital for their ongoing processes. And no surprises, but understanding the changing consumer behavior prevalent through market research stood as the most important of those tactics. No surprises, but one to reinforce just how vital the market research role really is. And as McKinsey have pointed in their most recent studies around the role of market research, it is by virtue of measurement correlating competitiveness and various measures of competitiveness with those organizations employing either low levels or no extensive use of customer analytics compared to those that do. There's a clear distinctive difference in competitive advantage conveyed by those firms that deploy customer analytics and market research techniques correlating with those in the course of doing business, as you can see across profit, sales, and growth. Organizations that extensively use market research are given the benefit of significant advantages over their competition. And in other surveys, there's a very strong correlation between the level of research engaged by organizations and both growth and profitability, reinforcing the McKinsey study. And those in particular that describe themselves as frequent users of market research have very distinctively high levels of growth and profit compared to their peers using research more occasionally or not at all. And perhaps one of the most powerful indicators of the importance of market research in today's environment is simply the expectation of the number of employment opportunities as indicated by the US Department of Labor here, where amongst those job descriptions growing in the course of the next 10 years or so, market research outperforms business operations specialists of a general nature by a distinctive number. So this is a very important topic, something that's of incredible importance and relevance today, given the dynamics of the marketplaces that we all work in. And let me now focus on some of the opportunities for you and your business when it comes to engaging market research. But I will say that despite the many benefits that I'm going to focus on in a short while, I have to say that market research usage is potentially quite sporadic amongst many organizations. And against this is a general survey finding, but there's still too many people or organizations describing their use of market research as some of the time, very little, or indeed never. Such an important strategic tool is not something to be considering to use some of the time, particularly in such volatile business climates as the ones in which we're all engaged, because there are any number of very important roles for research. What is also important to note is how much more data and data sources are expected to be deployed as market research techniques grow in their sophistication, and importantly, sources of data through the digitization of every marketing channel begin to provide even more opportunity for insight and correlation with other market research data sources. And so it's, again, not surprising businesses are expecting to use even more data sources going forward for their market research. It's also very important to note that as these sources of data increase, the likelihood of a customer organization feeling successful about customer engagement also increase, as this chart very interestingly points out how, and a number of dimensions of customer engagement, including feedback, gathering intelligence, satisfying customers, tailoring specific offers to customers, and indeed the risk of losing customers, is all mitigated in favor or against, dependent upon the number of external data sources organizations use to track and measure their performance across these different customer engagement dimensions. So one of the opportunities in thinking about market research for you is, what are the optimum numbers of different data sources that you can muster in order to create what would be more relevant and perhaps more meaningful measures of dimensions such as customer engagement. This chart, I think, spells out quite neatly the various primary research objectives most marketers tend to think of when it comes to using market research. Customer loyalty and conversion rates being two of the most popular, along with understanding and optimizing customer journeys, increasing content engagement by exploring the ways in which content engages their customers, defining appropriate customer channels, and looking to eliminate wastage amongst the advertising expenditures of these organizations are the most commonly cited primary research objectives. Now, there are many other secondary ones, but I think it's of particular importance to note that research serves many very worthy purposes in an organization, and being clear about the roles of research, as I'll discuss later, is fundamental to ensuring that the research results that you obtain are ones which are more meaningful and more actionable as a result. Because despite the many ways in which we can apply research, marketers in particular continue to cite gaps in meeting the challenges that they have compared to the outcomes of the research itself. And while some research outperforms in terms of its objectives against some critical challenges, particularly such as customer experience, as indicated in this chart, and conversion rates, for example, you see lower in the chart particular concerns around meeting the challenges of the types of and quality of data being used, and its capacity to improve development of lead generation programs. That's something that I'm going to talk a little bit about later as I come up with a few recommendations for you. It's also a very, very important opportunity going forward that market research be used in a meaningful way and in a strategic way for its particular application to the development of digital marketing strategy. There are any number of barriers to achieving success with digital marketing. And while some of these barriers are not necessarily those that market research can address, there are several, as I indicate in this chart, that market research can have quite a hand in helping clarify and redirect as appropriate. I note particularly 35% of respondents in this very important B2B CMO survey indicated lack of an effective strategy as being a critical barrier. Now, this is clearly an area of opportunity for the application of market research to understand the areas of strategy that may be weak compared to other areas of the strategy. Likewise, in identifying inadequate analytics or reporting, this is clearly a role for better design of market research and application of it in terms of it driving clearer analytics and clearer direction as a result. And finally, the whole subject of inadequate data and the quality of leads stemming from lead generation or driving lead generation is a profoundly important area of opportunity for improving through adequate research to understand perhaps how or who and when leads can be engaged in different ways through different channels. And indeed, on this subject of lead generation and sales particularly, another very important opportunity for market research when we look at the main factors that affect the length of the sales cycle is in helping understand the dynamics and subdynamics affecting sales cycle. And as a consequence of that, how market research can bring some sort of spotlight on areas of opportunity to improve or optimize the sales cycle. Once again, I've lined up a variety of areas where market research has a very, very strong opportunity to clarify in areas such as the qualification of leads in a pipeline. The alignment between sales and marketing can be examined through market research techniques to understand how each community could be working together better. Likewise, follow-up in a sales cycle and understanding the content driving that along with the intervals at which that content and the channels on which that content is being carried. And finally, a question of whether or not salesmanship can be improved is clearly an area of opportunity to investigate criticisms of salesmanship within an organization and to address those criticisms. I mentioned earlier that a tremendously important area of opportunity for market research is in the area of improving lead generation. And again, as this a piece of research finding points out, when asked, marketers identify 5 of the most important areas of improvement so far as lead generation are concerned, getting targeted prospects to engage being paramount. Now, this is clearly an area where market research can be used to examine why is it that prospects aren't being engaged? What is it that could be done better by virtue of that engagement? Likewise, the second most highly attributed barrier to improving lead generation cited by this survey being finding leads that convert. And once again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about areas of the conversion process specifically where market research through either samples or surveys of prospects can help examine areas of opportunity for your business and tailor accordingly. And, by virtue of that, help address one very important barrier cited at the bottom of this chart in reducing costs of new leads simply by improving the effectiveness of lead generation overall. Improving conversion is clearly a corollary of that step. And, I really do want to reinforce how in each of these attributes of improving conversion cited by B2B CMOs in this survey, market research has a very important role to play, whether it's enlightening CMOs in how to better use content engagement data by breaking the data down into its various subsets or attributes and therefore helping improve engagement overall, whether it's using intent data. One of the more sophisticated areas of data management today is in the correlation of buyer intent, along with a number of other relevant data points to the buyer to understand their likelihood or propensity to purchase. And this is a sophisticated market research technique that we should all be well versed in using. Likewise, incorporating video messaging, which is we've advocated in the Spotlight, in previous Spotlights, how powerful we think video marketing is as an opportunity for lead generation and lead conversion. And to reinforce this, market research has a very, very important role in understanding what it is in terms of video content that is most appealing to your buyers, and how might that video content be shaped and influenced so that it improves conversion overall. I could go on, but I do want to just point out that we are all challenged with looking at optimizing our content marketing mix. And it seems almost every year there's another channel in the market, in the content marketing mix to consider. Now, no one company is going to have the same mix when it comes to their business. And this is where market research becomes very important in helping to try and understand the relative weights and roles of the various available content marketing channels, whether that's email, video, ebooks, the extent to which your prospects and your customers are receptive to this content is a very, very important question for research to answer. And perhaps amongst the many ways in which research overall can help assist in the lead generation and lead conversion process, this is one of the areas where I think B2B marketers in particular underinvest, because content marketing has such a vital role to play in understanding and improving conversion rates. However, the amount of research that's applied to both the subject matter and the channels selected to convey that subject matter, I think are a very important area of opportunity. As is, by the way, the research itself and its contribution to the content marketing process itself as being an area, as being an asset of the organization to deploy in its lead generation efforts. I point out that in this research conducted in 2021, that research reports themselves are cited as assets producing the best results in the last 12 months of usage, following very shortly after virtual events, webinars, and online courses as being the most successful and equal to, and ranking equal to, short articles and posts, ebooks and white papers. So research is a very, very important subject matter that can present real opportunity for leverage for clients as you engage it and seek to provide your customers and prospects with sources of insight about their industry and their business. Likewise, it informs in-person events and can also inform the creation of lots of infographics, charts, and models. So one of the things that I like about market research for an organization is its propensity for being redeployed as a marketing asset in the process. Let me now just quickly surmise with some quick wins, some things that you should be thinking about doing now if you haven't already done them, in order to deploy market research for your organization's benefit. And I'm going to start with something that we remind our viewers of this webinar and webinars like this in the past several months, that it's critical to define your community and to define it along more dimensions than the norm. Typically, target prospects or personas or buying groups are defined in relatively basic dimensions, often just demographic dimensions such as geography and income. But there are other very important dimensions that really do begin to reveal the subtle differences that lie within segments and make it easier for you to engage those subsegments as areas of opportunity. And this is a role that market research clearly has a very, very important role to play. So when we think about defining your community, and we like this three-dimensional model of biographics, who holds the buying authority, who are the stakeholders and influencers in the buying process, what are the patterns and processes they follow, complementing demographics, as I've mentioned, and then ultimately psychographics, thinking about their relationship to the category, to your brand, those tangible and intangible values that your brand or your offering has to present to the marketplace, and their self-interests and influences on those self-interests that can shape the way they go about engaging your company. We think this is a very valuable way to understand the communities that you sell to and the communities that you would like to sell to, and clearly a major role for market research. The other very quick win and very germane to your event strategy for 2023 is to make sure that research drives it. Now, what do we mean by that? What we mean is that research has such an important role in helping inform some critical decisions when it comes to your event strategy. Firstly, it can help inform the communities that you want to use event management for. As I've said earlier, it may or may not be events, or whether they're virtual or whether they're live, whether they're webinars, whether they're custom events, whether they're small gatherings, whatever format they may take. It's important to understand amongst the communities that you sell to and want to sell to, that that's the right thing to do, that that's the sort of experience that they feel comfortable with or they would be receptive to. Once again, research can validate that, and it can validate that in numbers to help you understand, relative to the investments you're making, whether or not those numbers pay off. Likewise, when it comes to the content of that event, when you've decided on an event strategy, it's very important, I think, to understand how your prospects and your clients respond to certain content styles. What are the industry issues that they would be interested in? What is it about your brand's reputation that you need to reinforce or improve? These are two amongst many other content types and themes that are very important to understanding, and research can play a critical role. Likewise, when it comes to defining goals for your events, their timing, the differences that might take place one market to another, and before and after, pre and post your event experiences, the ways in which you can go about recruiting audiences, the promotional plan you should be using, the involvement of social media, for example, to amplify the existence of the event and to encourage the audience to attend. All of these things can be informed by relatively simple research methodologies to help you be sure that the money you're investing in your event is money being well spent and has been to some extent shaped strategically using research. And then finally, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with, this concept of voice of the customer, every business should have some sort of voice of the customer program, whether that's a continuous tracking model, surveying the voice of the customer on regular intervals and repeated interval assessments of dimensions that are important to your business, along with dimensions that may be emerging, such as new competition or new factors that are influencing your marketplace, whatever they may be. Continuous tracking models are vital to understanding how you may be in a dynamic marketplace and how you and your competition are being affected by those dynamics. It may be that you should be thinking only about an annual voice of the customer survey, or for that matter, a simple tactical voice of the customer survey, whereby there is an issue that's come up for the business, which research can play a hand in being clear to you about what the issues really are and what are the dimensions of that issue, rather than going by gut instinct or going by, subjective opinions. Let the customer help you make that decision. And those sources can be both qualitative panels in relatively small numbers that allow you to dig into and understand the depths of feeling and the subtleties of feeling around a particular subject, or they can be larger quantitative surveys involving larger sample sizes of 100 or more or so, depending on the scope of the question and the urgency with which you're conducting the analysis. Regardless, we would encourage every client to make sure that they feel like they are adequately informed by their customers using one or another of the techniques I've talked about here on a regular basis. So as I've said, those decisions are being correlated and aligned with how your customers feel about the decision, in addition to the commercial judgments you have to make about the business. Folks, I hope you've enjoyed this relatively brief and executive overview of this vitally important subject. We would welcome any opportunity to assist you in this regard. We are very pleased to confirm that Justin Gandy has returned to Argyle to lead our research efforts, having many years of experience in senior roles with other research companies, as well as leading Argyle's research efforts. We are very pleased that he's back, and we would be delighted at any opportunity to share with you more about how we can help you in this regard. So folks, once again, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you've enjoyed this Argyle Executive Spotlight on Market Research, and by all means, reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.